Hi, I'm back with another sketch to page. Actually, this one is sort of a page to sketch to page. I have 3 photos that I want to scrap, and I did a layout a few months ago that I really liked that had 3 photos. And this one has sort of a recipe cooking kind of theme, so I put the photos to make them look like they were on recipe cards or tabs from a recipe folder, and used some rather homey kind of papers. And I also continued with the heart theme as far as all the love that went into preparing the meals that we ate when we were visiting a friend. But I liked the 3 photos and the journaling and title here, and the way that the embellishments kind of bring the eye across the page. So I decided to do that again with 3 photos from vacation. And here's my sketch. Again, I have my photos at the top, title and journaling, which could kind of flip either way, and then the embellishments to draw the line across the page. These are my photos. I've been printing a lot of my photos in a 3 by 4 inch size, and that way I can do 2 of them on a 4 by 6, and I can then cut them up and arrange them in whatever order that I want to place them in. The papers that I'm going to use for this project are coming from an 8 by 8 paper pad. Since there's really not a lot of designer paper that's going on here, just probably some for the embellishments, maybe to mat the photos. It's easy to use some of these smaller papers, and these have some really good colors in them for my photos, some things that are really relevant and that work well for the children's pictures, I think, too. So, and I like this paper with the little stars. So I've got several things that I can pull from there for the papers. I also have the stickers that go with that collection. And since stars were one of the themes in the paper, I pulled out these brand new Studio Calico mistable stars that I just got in. And I also have the leaves, so I may use one of these for some embellishments. Another thing that I thought would work well for the embellishment are these arrows, and you'll see why when I get to my title. I had to think a little bit about what I wanted to make the title about. My pages always start with the photos and the story, and the story about this is really as much about getting up to this waterfall as it was the waterfall itself. So I'm going to be using up as a theme, and I may use some of these arrows as well. I also pulled some stickers for the title, and finally I pulled out some stamps. I'm using a cardstock background. I didn't really have a designer paper that I thought that went with this that wasn't too busy, so I believe some stamps will let me add a little bit more embellishment without being too busy. And these were 2 of the sets that I had that I thought worked really well from Stampin' Up. The trees were more stylized rather than more natural kind of trees. I love trees and leaves, so I had a lot of things to choose from. So I've got some options there as well. So let's get started building the page. Okay, to get my page started, I've gone ahead and misted my background paper with some Mr. Huey Manila Mist, which comes out a fairly green shade, and it comes out quite a bit darker than what it shows on the bottle. I found if I mist this on something where I can mop up the color, then I can get it down to the color of the bottle. But if you just spray it on paper and it dries really fast, you get a darker color. So sometimes these mists are like that. But that's okay. It shows up nicely, and it's going to go for my effect. I've decided to flip my sketch and put my embellishments in the upper right and the lower left corner. So it'll be very similar, just flipping it around. Now, I've also taken my photos and I've matted them, and I'm going to be arranging them like the sketch. Here near the top, I've flipped them around so that the children's picture together is showing in the middle. But I haven't glued them down, and the reason is that I want to do some stamping on the background. And whenever I'm going to stamp on the background, I typically try to do that first, or before I get too far along in the process, or I do it somewhere that I know I can cover it up if something doesn't go right. I have a backup plan. And in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and do this first before I glue these down, and before I get the title and everything in place, because then it would be hard to start over. If you're nervous about stamping on your layouts, some things I would suggest is work with a cardstock background where you probably have other pieces of the same cardstock, so if you mess up you can always pull out another piece, or with a cardstock background you can always flip it over and use the other side if things don't go well. At this point all I'd have to do is remist, and so I don't lose very much. Also, test out your stamping. I'm going to be working with this large tree, and I can test it either in the area where the pictures are going to cover up the background. That would be a good place to test, or since it is cardstock and I have more of it, I'm just going to use a piece of scrap and see how my tree comes out on this scrap piece of cardstock. Yeah, I think that's a good color, and it's showing up really nicely. So I'm ready to go ahead and ink this up. I'm using Colorbox chalk ink, which is very dependable. Usually gets very good coverage. Okay. Here's my tree. The other place that I want a tree to mirror my embellishment is up here at the top. So I'm going to lay my photos out approximately where they're going to go, because I want to make sure my tree is not too far over to the side, because I don't want to see the whole thing. I just want to see the top of it. So I should be fine with placing it up there in the upper right corner. And the bottom trunk of the tree will get covered with the photos. Okay. Alright, so my tree needs some leaves, and I have several different colors of ink here. I'm going to start out with the lightest one and add some leaves. Yeah, I did the medium color, and now I'm doing the darkest color and finishing up my leaves. It was midsummer when we took this hike. Oops. There's an example of a slight oops. I dropped my stamp, but I don't think it's going to be a big disaster. One of the things that helped it is this misting, so you don't quite see that as much. We know it's there, but I think when the layout's done it won't be really noticeable. I did not plan that to show you what would happen. It's just an accident. We all have them with our stamps, but that shouldn't keep you from, trying and experimenting with it. As I say, you're working on a piece of cardstock, you can always try a different piece. But I'm not too worried about that little bit. I think it kind of blends in with the mist, and that's an option for misting. If I hadn't misted, that might have been something I could have done to kind of covered up my mistake. It's just to sprinkle a little bit of mist over it to sort of blend in. In fact, I have actually tried and done that before to cover up a mistake with inks. Okay, so now I have my two trees, and so I've got my background the way I want it, and it's time to start building some layers. I have my three photos adhered, and I'm ready to add the title. I've picked some large letters in a wood grain pattern from K & Company. Then I'm going to do the word up, and it's going to say up to the falls. But the up is my most important piece. So I'm going to put that in. And this is where I want to bring in one of those arrows. There. Let's see. That one looks like you're going to shoot somebody with it. Let's see. Let's try one of these. I think this is more of a directional kind of arrow. So that's where I think I would like that arrow to go, and leave some space for that. And go ahead and do my to the and then falls. I'm going to wait and glue that arrow on. I may give it some color. So let's just adhere that, or just put it there with the magnet. I have my journaling ready to go on, except that I printed it on white paper, and it really needs to go on ivory to kind of go with everything here. So I think we can fix that up fairly easily. I have some antique linen distress ink, and that's a great way to take your white or two white papers and give them a little more of a cream look to them. And because I did my photo mats with a little bit of vintage photo distress ink, I think I'm going to add just a touch of that to the edge of these as well. Now we have our photos, our title, and journaling, so really what's left is some embellishment. And I know I want to use a sticker or two. I'm going to do, I think, the Happy Trail sticker, although when the journaling talks about how it wasn't necessarily such a happy trail for our little girl who wasn't really that much into hiking, but we had a fun time with it anyway. So I think we'll use that somewhere. And then I have all these papers that I started out with from October Afternoon. I haven't worked in very many of those. That's where my colors are really coming from here. I'm going to cut some different strips of these and see what I can do to arrange those for my embellishment. Also, I had mentioned doing some stars, and I have the ones from Studio Calico that you missed. However, I think since I'm using this wood arrow, I believe I will use my other stars, which are from also from Studio Calico, but I have the little wooden stars. So I think I'm going to use some of those instead. So let me play with some papers, and then we'll see where we are. Thanks. I've picked up a couple of the papers that I'm considering using on the page. And one thing that doesn't bother me is I do try to repeat papers in multiple places, and I have them up here in this upper right corner as well. It doesn't matter to me though that it's the exact same paper as long as it's the same colors. So I have the diamond paper up here. I am going to repeat the stars, and down here on the bottom, instead of the diamond paper, I have this plaid that's the same colors, and just to add some variety. I also have this navy with the stars that I'm going to use, and what I'm going to do up in the upper corner to balance that is there's a sticker called the Big Dipper. I can't imagine ever using those words, so I'm going to use this as a label sticker. I'm just going to put it on the layout, and then I'll cover those words with the date, either typed or stamped or handwritten or something on another piece of paper. So that's how I'll get the navy in there. And of course I have my Happy Trails sticker that I still want to use down here on the bottom. And after I get my papers in place, then I think it'll be time to scatter some of those stars. I do have one other embellishment that I would like to do, and it goes along with the papers, and that's using this paper. This is out of the 8x8 paper pad, so all of these are kind of a small scale. And there's some really cute images in here, and one of them is these little critters, the owl and the fox going hiking. So I'm going to cut that out along with one of the other images and make some of my own embellishments to go in the embellishment area. Okay, I'm cutting some of these images out with the Creative Memories oval cutters, and I've done a matte and rust to complement them. I love to get more out of my pattern paper, kind of cut it up and do different things with it. So I think those little foxes will be really cute, and I'll add some distress ink around the edge so they'll match the other papers. Also, I've decided to add some color to this arrow, and one of the easy ways to do that is with a marker. I understand you can use Copics. You can also use these water-based markers. Stampin' Ups work really well too. Even after you color, you can still see the wood grain effect. Maybe even see it better, the coloring. And just like paper and stamping, you can always flip it over if you don't like it and do something different, but I think that'll be a good complementary color to the other things that we're doing on the layout. Okay, I have the completed page, and let's take a look at the sketch. I used the 3 photos, the title, and the journaling under the photos. And I did flip the position of the embellishments from the original layout that I used to develop the sketch, and so that I could do this up to the falls kind of theme. And I didn't end up using a lot of pattern paper because I did more stamping, and of course quite a bit of that got covered up, but it still enhances the whole out in the woods kind of theme to this particular outing that we had. I used some designer paper to create some embellishments, a couple of stickers, and I've added these stars to sort of again continue with this moving up approach and picking up the journaling and the pictures as your eye travels up the page. And I did add a little bit of pom-pom trim to kind of finish things off. So that's my layout. Thank you for joining me today. If you would like to see the sketch, it's over on my blog. Feel free to download it and use it for your own personal projects. Thank you.